If you don't mind, let's take a moment for the sponsors so they can keep the lights running and keep West Virginia Commonplace going. 1998, Stamps.com has been an indispensable tool for nearly 1 million businesses. Stamps.com brings the service of the United States Postal Service and the UPS shipping right to your computer. Whether you're in an office sending invoices, a side hustle Etsy shop, or a full blown warehouse shipping out orders, Stamps.com will make your life easier. All you need is a computer and a standard printer, supplies or equipment. Within minutes, you're up and running, printing official postage for any letter, any package, anywhere you want to send. And you'll get exclusive discounts on postage and shipping from USPS and UPS. Once your mail is ready, just schedule a pickup or drop it off. No traffic, no lines. Cut the confusion out of shipping with Stamps.com's new rate advisory tool. You can compare shipping rates and timelines to easily find the best option. Save time and money with Stamps.com. There's no risk, and with my promo code POD, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and digital scale. No long term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in POD. That's Stamps.com, promo code POD. Stamps.com. Never go to the post office again. Welcome to West Virginia Uncommonplace. Today, this episode takes a twist. I have someone that does shows with me. It's beyond what you would call just a collaborator. It's a colleague. It's a contributor now. Her name is Stephanie, and she's from StephUp Podcast. But she's here today in a different title. Today, she's here as an author of an amazing book, What Should Dragon Do? Stephanie, please introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about the book so we can get them intrigued.
Thank you, JR. It is a pleasure to be on. And I would say a friendship. You and I have a friendship.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So What Should Dragon Do is a story for children ages like 3 to 6. And there's 3 stories in there about situations where you can get angry, something bothers you, and you lash out at people. And it shows you the scenarios, and then it asks you so dragon is the one that's always angry. And she breathes fire. So what should she have done instead? What could be a better response? And these are actually scenarios that happened to me when I lived with roommates. So it just kind of started out as stories of, I don't know, I would tell my other friends and they think they were funny. So I just wrote them down. I'm like, this would be a great children's book because it's teaching children. And there's little scenarios, like leaving toothpaste on the sink. That's a thing that happens every day to people, right? It doesn't have to be this huge, big scenario. But in those little tiny things, what can we do? What can our reaction be?
Okay. Now, this book has a big theme because we'll go into the character development and all that stuff in just a moment because my normal rollout. Common decency. That is something that is so lost. And I don't care where you are in the world or your class or anything like that. Common decency is something that has been truly lost in society. And to me, I feel like that was one of the important topics that I got out of just reading the first 3 pages of this book. How did you, what made you decide to incorporate common decency? Because like we talked in our pre-call, you normally, common decency is not the way that is usually taught in a book. A book usually teaches a young child or a teenager or even an adult that didn't have common decency that things roll along like this. The rhetoric is something bad happens, you're just supposed to be humble and not do anything bad. But in your stories, something bad happens, you react to it in a negative way. But or you do that pause moment there, and it's like, how should you react? And that's where you teach a common decency. So, what made you come up with this mechanism in your book?
Well, over the last 2 years, I've been on more so of a personal development growth and learning more about, because I tend to, when I get really frustrated and I want to be understood, I can get excited and upset and kind of start to get angry. And, with all the stuff like especially during the pandemic, there have been a lot of Karen videos and we see how people are reacting to things. And I realized I don't want to be like that. I want to be the person that's calm and collected. And they're the heroes, right? When we see these videos, they're the ones everyone's like, this person was handling it well. And I always envied those people. And I was like, I want to be that person who handles things well. And just in living with different people over the years, having roommates and working in different environments, it was kind of something I always saw that I wanted to do. And as I was learning through different motivational speakers and personal development gurus, I started realizing like it matters, those little things, how we have a choice to, we can either react or wait, what's the word? Well, we have a choice in how we act or react, right? So, but it's hard, especially if you're used to expressing anger. So for me, I kind of, for myself, I wanted to be that person who was handling the situation with grace, and I'm learning as I go. And even though this book is based on scenarios from when I lived with roommates, I realized we are all dragon. We can be dragon at times, right? And we can, because we get upset about things and then we react.
Okay.
And I just think it's important, especially now in the world as we're dealing with such, well, we're always dealing with issues in the world, but with the pandemic and just a lot of stuff is happening, having the grace and kindness is needed.
Right. And the one thing that like I want to touch on, like I didn't know if you had heard of the author Charles Swindoll. He had this little small poem called Attitude, and I think we talked about it. And
Yeah.
just the one line there that I took it as I was reading this. It came back to me. I'm not going to go through the whole quote, but it's the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on my life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, the education, than money, than circumstance, than failures, than success, than what other people think. And like you said, that attitude, the way that plays out in your book, you have to watch that attitude. Another theme that eventually comes along in the book is cooperation. Um, People nowadays don't cooperate with other people. We do this slick thing I'm guilty of sometimes. I will pacify someone. If there's something that somebody wants to do and I necessarily don't want to do it, I'll go along with it. But at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, it's on that person. We don't do things as teams that often anymore, and not because of pandemic, but just because of the nature of how everybody's in a rush, So how did cooperation, like, because you had roommates, so how did you guys get to a point to cooperate, and then how did you decide to incorporate that into the character development of the three characters?
Well, yeah, living with roommates, I think everyone should have to do it at least once because you really learn stuff from it. uh, it was kind of, these were just stories that actually happened. And I'm the type, like, I'm a passive aggressive person. And I grew up like, if you see something that needs to be done, do it. Right.
Yes.
So when something would happen, I was the one, a lot of times, me and another roommate usually were the ones cleaning, and other people didn't bother. So I would do it, but I'd have a bad attitude a lot of times, get really angry, like, well, they're not helping out and whatever. And it was just kind of, I know that for me, I had to fix that attitude. But it's so important to, when you're living cohesively with people, you want to, if everyone pitches in, it just makes it a better living situation. And so there's tiny things that would happen when I lived with roommates, somebody would get upset, well, you didn't do this and you didn't put this away. And it's like, you can actually do it for other people too. Like, it's fine. I mean, I think that's where the difference is. If something happens that this person is consistently leaving their shoes in the front hallway and you trip over them all the time, that's when you should talk to somebody about it. But if they're leaving their shoes there because they really had to go pee and they're running to the bathrooms and they did it once, it's fine. Just move it. Right. And I think a lot of times we don't really know the difference. We get mad at somebody for something that happens once. And it's like, I can do that for you. Right. Does that
Right.
answer your question? Sorry, I feel
Yeah.
like I got lost.
Oh, no. That
Sometimes
answered
I
it very
start
well.
talking and I'm like, wait, where was I?
It answered it very well.
Okay.
Now, going into this book, you have a location, Turtle Green Island. Please, if you don't mind, elaborate on these points here. How did you come up with this place? Did this have an involvement with turtles? And is this place a fictional place or not?
Yes. Oh, that'd be fun if it was real. Um, sorry.
I mean, because it could be like
Yeah.
I was thinking like you could have went off the coast of Nova Scotia, and there could be a turtle green island that no one knows about. You
No,
know.
well, it could be. I made it up though. I knew somebody who loved turtles. And the more she loved them, the more I hated them. So it was just kind of like a joke. I started out, I'm like, oh yeah, turtles. I hate turtles. I mean, okay, I don't hate turtles. It was just because this person was so obsessed with them that I started to hate them because I'm like, ugh, I have to hear about it all the time. But I have nothing against turtles. So if they're listening, I'm fine with you. So it was just kind of like an inside joke. And I just named it that just for fun. But yeah, that's basically the story. It's nothing too exciting. But if there is a place, let's go. Let's go check it out.
Always. And then I'll tell you something. Just in American culture, when you said the Turtle Green Island, we had this shit that came on in the mid-90s called Gullah Gullah Island, and it had nothing to do with your story, but for some reason I took Gullah Gullah Island and Turtle Green Island. And for any listener that's listening to this later on, you'll do the same thing when you read this book. You'll be like, this is Gullah Gullah Island. There's different characters, but there was this yellow frog it was just some dude in a hot suit called Benya Benya, and he kind of caused problems with his people that he was on the island with because it was like a normal family and whatever. But I kind of just taught that island. That's what I pictured in my head the very first thing when I seen Turtle Green Island. I was like, did she take this from Gullah Gullah Island? Maybe.
I've never heard of Gullah Gullah Island, but now I have to check it out. Is it on YouTube or something?
Yeah, it's definitely on YouTube. You'll have to check it out.
Okay.
But the thing is, when you watch it, just watch the first 5 minutes because after that it gets real educational, and it's as an adult now, I just can't watch it. Now, to these characters, there's Dragon, Racer, and Scout. Dragon, obviously we can kind of tell comes from you. Racer and Scout, without getting yourself in trouble with your former roommates, do they have any ties to any of your roommates?
Yes. Actually, Racer and Scout are a mixture of me and some others. Dragon is all on her own.
Oh, all right.
It's these are a specific person actually. Like I wrote it just because it was usually this one person that these things happen to, or she was Dragon. But it was after, because I was thinking, wow, we are all Dragon at times, and I can be Dragon. But yeah, it's kind of a mixture of different roommates. But I've had some roommates who come who message me and they're like, well, am I in the book? I want to be in the book, but only if it's good. And I'm like, I don't know. It's pretty funny. My one roommate, she had a dog. And so she goes, oh, you should write a book about Georgie. And I'm like, well, maybe I will. Adventures with Dragon and Georgie or something. I think that'd be funny. But my other roommates find it amusing. They're like, oh yeah, you should write books about more situations.
So conflict resolution is obviously the goal of this book. How do you handle, because I always tie in a different twist here to when we do these interviews.
I know you do.
So conflict resolution, how do you use that in real life now after writing this book? And how did you use it before? We're going to do a now and before instead of a before and after, because when you write the book, anything you write is self-help somewhere or self-care, right? So you really sit back and you're thinking, and even at the end of this book, I'm like, man, I've got to do a lot more conflict resolution than what I do. I'm one of those people that normally, I'm a good talker, so I can talk my way out of a conflict with someone and they can feel good. And then I just go about my day and who cares?
Yeah.
But I'm like, some things I should address that I don't address. I said, so I want to address like 4 things today that I normally wouldn't deal with. I would just, like I said, do that little smooth suave thing and get out of it and go about my life. So like, before, how was your conflict resolution, and how after the book was your conflict resolution?
Ooh, great question. To be honest, mine was awful. So I was passive aggressive. I'm a people pleaser. So I would always try to appease people and do what they liked because I didn't have boundaries. But then I'd secretly get resentful and angry. And then I kind of would just personalize, or I just took it upon myself, and I would just allow the anger to kind of stay
Esther,
there.
1998, Stamps.com has been an indispensable tool for nearly 1 million businesses. Stamps.com brings the service of the United States Postal Service and the UPS shipping right to your computer. Whether you're in an office sending invoices, a side hustle Etsy shop, or a full blown warehouse shipping out orders, Stamps.com will make your life easier. All you need is a computer and a standard printer, supplies, or equipment. Within minutes, you're up and running, printing official postage for any letter, any package, anywhere you want to send. And you'll get exclusive discounts on postage and shipping from USPS and UPS. Once your mail is ready, just schedule a pickup or drop it off. No traffic, no lines. Cut the confusion out of shipping with Stamps.com's new rate advisory tool. You can compare shipping rates and timelines to easily find the best option. Save time and money with Stamps.com. There's no risk, and with my promo code POD, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in POD. That's Stamps.com, promo code POD. Stamps.com. Never go to the post office again.
Yes, fester. And I had a friend, and she goes, "You're letting things fester, especially with this one person." And she goes, "Oh, I want to be there when you blow up." And it eventually, after a few years, it blew up, and it ruined our friendship. Because I didn't know how to handle it with this person. Now, there's some people really that you just, they don't listen. There's no conversation, and they refuse to learn anything. And those kind of people, I just am like, okay, I have to keep them at distance, right? Because they're driving me crazy. But when you have good friends that you can discuss with, I've learned over the years that it's best to just tell them, be as gentle as you can. Like it's really hard. It's such a learning process, not to say, well, you did this and I felt like this, but instead to say, hey, I just wanted to let you know, like, I know you didn't mean it, or this is what happened, and I just felt like this, and I just, can we talk about it? Or like say it in a diplomatic way. And I think that just takes learning. I'm
So
still learning
true.
these things. It's so hard. And also you're afraid of other people's reactions. Um, but I mean, like I said, I've been in this, I want to learn how to communicate better with people. I'm still learning. And even like I got a new job recently, and I'm getting so frustrated. And when I get frustrated and overwhelmed, I just cry. And I know, like, I'm glad to be working from home, to be honest, because people don't see this. And then I start swearing, and I'm, you know, uh, but my kind of reactions to that is getting less and less. And the amount of time, like, I can calm myself down a lot better. But I'm like, okay, it's fine. Calm down, take a deep breath. It's not as bad as I think it is, because in my mind, it's this huge thing, and that's where I get super stressed, right? So I'm still learning this. I still mess up all the time. And I'm like, oh man, if I'm writing about this, I kind of want to be the person that's got it figured out. But I don't think anyone's really got it figured out, because we're human, and we're still learning as we go.
Oh yes, yes, and I wholeheartedly agree. My whole statement in life is we're evolving and revolving at the same time. And the only thing on communication, like I said, when you hit certain ages, like I think in our 30s, and then when you're getting closer to your 40s, because that's where I'm hitting closer to, you learn this thing, and it's like when we were taught about light, you were taught transparent, translucent, and opaque. And those are real people in real life. The translucent people are the ones that you're gonna be able to just automatically have good conversation with, or to a degree, with a little bit of buttering, like you said. Transparent is going to be direct. You're going to be able to just, like you said, the good friends you're going to just be able to talk to. And then there's that opaque person. And sometimes we're that opaque person you can't really see through, or you can't really get through to. So the opaque people, like you said, sometimes I have this thing called the Memories Museum that's in my head. I will place someone there, and I will come back to you later on at a given time if I have the energy or the desire to do that. So that's one thing I do like about what you said there. And then like with this book, you have so many themes in it. Another theme that is so heavy, that probably the biggest theme, is a choice. You have a choice in what you do, what you say, because what you do, what you say has two things. It's either a reward or a downfall. And then my mom would say that there's a third thing. There's a lesson. So inside of this, you pause your book. You have a moment that you pause it and you question what's going to be the choice, which should be the right thing to do. What made you decide when you're writing this book? Because you're writing it, you stop for a few days, you go have coffee, you go do whatever you have to do in your normal life. What made you use a choice as a major thing? Because most people would just go ahead and just be like, this is what happened, this is what you should do, without questioning it.
Oh, you got so much more out of this than I did, I think. Like, you're finding all these different themes, and I'm like, oh, is that what it is? Oh, okay. So yeah, so originally I just wanted to write down funny stories of what happened with roommates, because they would make people laugh, and I was just going to write them as like a book. But then I was thinking, well, there's problems with that if people know who they are, and then I was like, wait, a lot of these are things people go through. What if I write a children's book? So I just started to write down the stories. But during this time, I was also learning myself about how we have a choice with a lot of things in life. And so as I was learning this, I was thinking, hey, this would be a great thing to also talk about in the book, because you see how Dragon reacts. Then you see what could have been a better choice for that. And I remember when these situations happen and we'd have roommate discussions, and it was like, well, why did you act that way? You could have, if you had acted differently, there could have been, we wouldn't have had this huge blowout. It could have just been like, okay, I'll turn the TV down, no problem. And, was it Racer or Scout? I think it was Racer, could go back to sleep. But because Dragon was selfish and wanted the volume up as loud as she could, Racer couldn't sleep, and she was very upset. And so it's just like we can be kind and have this choice to think of others. So it kind of was just all of that as I was learning things too, and realizing I have a choice in how I react to things and do things. And also, I think empathy is a huge thing, because for me, I'm a highly sensitive person, and I'm, to my detriment, many times I've done things more for other people than for myself, but that also gets me in trouble because then I get resentful. So I would get actually mad at other people who weren't as sensitive. I'm like, why are you so rude? And not thinking of me when I think of you all the time, in the sense of I try not to be loud, I try to do this. And it also takes time to realize not everyone thinks like that. Not everyone thinks the way we do. Yeah, people should think of others, but sometimes they're not intentionally doing that either. And I had to learn that too, right? They're not intentionally doing that. They just don't have that awareness.
Right. And then sometimes it all falls back on that topic that we talked about at the very beginning, common decency. And then I'll do a switch on it and just go to common courtesy. Sometimes, like, because I even catch myself, I'm obnoxious about how I eat and do things. I might spill milk on the counter, and I might just walk away from it and come back and clean it later. To some people, and I'm not saying anyone in my household or anything like that, that needs to be cleaned up right then and there. And don't leave the fork that you had inside the milk to get the make chocolate milk. Don't leave that on the counter too, you know. And I'm that type of person. I'll leave it and not think about it. Come back and go, oh, I need to clean this up. Let me wash this spoon off, whatever.
Yeah.
So I get exactly what you're saying. So inside your book, there's a lot going on there. And you can find this book on.
You can find it on Amazon.ca.com, Barnes and Noble. So it's right now it's online, or you can go to my website, www.stephanieannweb.com, and you can buy it directly from there as well.
Okay, now at the very end of this book, and this is how I like to do with people's books, without giving away any of the story, Stephanie Webb, that's her name. Sorry that I just put it out there for the whole world.
That's okay.
As someone who lived with both dragons and bears over the years, Stephanie understands the difficult situations of living with roommates. Stephanie loves to learn and laugh her way through life. Where did this statement come from?
Like, oh, I had a hard time trying to figure out what to say because, you know, they're like, say something about yourself. I'm like, oh, what do I say? I thought it'd be kind of fun just to be vague in that sense and just say I understand what it's like in these stories. And also that because on my podcast, I also talk about, I love to learn about other things and have fun along the way, you know, because I just want to learn what I can and be a better person, but I also want to laugh about things and just have fun. So I think that's important. Also, in these situations, I can laugh about these things now, but when they happened, they were not funny. But I kind of wish I'd had humor in those times too, you know, instead of because I was pretty stressed out and angry and had high blood pressure and stuff. And that was from stress of living with people and work and everything. And if I had been able to at least handle it better and maybe laugh more, I probably wouldn't have been so stressed, you know? So I think that's an important lesson too. So it's just kind of like, what do I say in this? And I thought that would be kind of fun.
All right. So how long did it actually take you to write this book?
Well, I already had the stories down. I actually have a lot more stories. So if I can afford to. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that'll tie into my next question.
Oh, if I have more money to publish, then I'll be able to publish those. It was mostly like just one afternoon. I kind of wrote it down, and then it took a few weeks as I was editing and going through, and I just had it sitting there, and I was thinking about, maybe I'll do something with this someday. This is fun. And then I started watching webinars where it's like how you can write a book and self-publish. And I was like, oh, cool. And I just kind of took step by step. I found somebody on Fiverr to do the illustrations. I asked them their name because I was like, can I give you credit? And they're just like, well, just put my, their Fiverr name. So it's kids_art. And I love, like, the images just pop. They're colorful. They're so cute. And so they did a really great job. And then and then I found a publisher, Freeze and Press, and they were very helpful. They edited it because there's a round of editing that comes with it. So I was like, okay, does this make sense? And so they just put it in the best scenario for like that age group and for the wording. And so it wasn't as, I don't know. I also had friends who edited, but basically it took me a few weeks, I guess, to just kind of get what I could out of it. And then I passed it on to other people to polish it up.
And then you have people at Reddit. We have a friend between us, Renee Schultz.
Renee!
Hey, and Renee, she's an author too. Did she give you any little insight or any like little tips on writing, or did y'all get to talk about it at any stages?
Yeah, she gave me some editing tips, and I took them to my editor and we talked about them. And yeah, and Renee was very encouraging. I mean, she's such a sweet person. And she wrote a little review for my book. So I was like, thank you, Renee.
Yeah, so I've seen it in there. And let me tell you the amazing thing about this book. And this is from the standpoint of, and yes, I am an Apple guy, and I'm not going to name my products, but I obviously have a tablet, a computer, and a phone. So I moved between 3 different devices. So I read your book on 3 different devices. And obviously the phone setting is how it sits up. Obviously reading it on a tablet, you can turn it sideways so it gives you the book feel. But reading it on a computer, going through the book program that I use, like it gave me time to put notes beside, because obviously we were doing a show together, or we didn't know, I don't know if we knew we were going to do a show, but being able to put little sticky notes here and there and just have these thoughts, I was like, wow, there's so much concept inside this book. And truth be told, unless it has to do with something that I'm really doing, I really don't read that much. I actually retired from reading, because we read the news a lot. But your book,
Yeah.
like I got, like I told you, I read it 3 times because I seen different themes and concepts, and I'm like, how did she do all this? And the more and more I got into it, I was like, wow, she took real scenarios, probably more truth to it than anybody will ever truly know, put them out there, and allows us to be captured inside this. So here goes my next question. What's going to happen here? Are we going to get sequels, or is this a saga? Are you going to do a Twilight type deal? Are you going to do a Harry Potter deal and just keep it going? Is it going to move from just a children's book to something more in depth? Are we going to finally get the adult version of this with the dragons?
That would be awesome. I would love to do more. I was thinking though, how would I do that with What Should Dragon Do? I'd have to find because the title is already in there, and that's the one book, right?
Right.
Although, if you have like the Berenstein Bears, oh wait, they had different titles. I don't know, but everyone knows like that's actually the name of the series or the book. But I was thinking there could be Dragon at Work, or maybe why is Dragon acting like this? Because there's deeper things going on. When people are reacting and they're angry, there's something else happening. They're frustrated. They're feeling insecure. They're something, and I think that's not talked about enough, or maybe it's talked about more now. But when you feel misunderstood, I know when I feel misunderstood, I kind of get louder and I want people to understand me. And then they're like, calm down. I'm like, but you're not listening to me. That's a basic human thing that we all want, right? To be understood and
Yes.
listened to.
And then if you
Sorry.
go ahead.
I was
I
just
was
going to
just going to
say, I'll say, I was just going to say, I should do one where Dragon apologizes. That would be really important lesson, because I've had people in my life who never apologize. And you're like, why do you never apologize? That's something we all need to be doing, because we all mess up and we hurt people. And so I think that would be a great lesson too, right?
Right.
Anyway.
And I'll give you another lesson too, like this one about the attention, because like you said, your voice wanting to be heard because you're misunderstood. People misconstrue that as you wanting just attention. And you could write a book on that, because I know you got the vernacular and you go really deep into things about attention, because some people, like I said, see that way. And that would be a really good book too. So you have a lot of ideas there for that. One thing that I do want to touch on before we jump off of here is this. It's amazing how me and you met, and how far you have evolved yourself. I want to tell you, I credit you to sometimes keeping my sanity with some of these podcasters and different people. This is just a side note. Just about your calm demeanor and how you're always lively about things. Having that human expression of being able to show who you are. You might get anxious about things, but you slow things down. You've taken the time to not have a meteoric rise of anger or anxiety about things. You just take them slow, do them the way that you feel they need to be done and timely. And that's one thing I appreciate, when you can see that evolution in someone. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of that right there. Like it's really cool, because everybody develops a certain way, and you don't always get to see people through certain steps, but I've like got to see you go along, because when we first met you were a little frantic, and now you're like, man, I'll do that whenever. So last thing I want to throw in here is this is the portion like where we kind of take care of the authors, that fledgling authors and stuff like that. How hard was it to really produce this book? We're talking about from the beginning to publishing.
I think it, for me, because some people will have different experiences, right? You're writing something down and then your brain stops. And for me, I had that experience at times, but other times it would flow. So that was fairly easy compared to figuring out how to publish. And then having the money, because it costs money to self-publish. And I did reach out. I had a listing of all these publishers and I would send it out and I'd do all the things that they required. And I would get, oh, no, thank you. Oh, or no response. And you're just like, wow, this is discouraging. But that's when you kind of remind yourself, keep going. And I love these stories of people who fail 1,000 times and then they succeeded. And as somebody who failed so many times in my life, I just thought, well, I guess I'm a failure. And that's not true for anybody. It's just that we give up or we haven't found what our passion is. So, but the publisher I went with, Freeze and Press, they're actually Canadian. They're out in Vancouver.
Okay.
Or Victoria, BC anyways. I don't know. They made it so much less complicated than I thought it would be. They had different stages. They had a specialist, like the person that I would communicate with. And I was like, what do I do? I don't know. And they're like, okay, here, watch this webinar, read this article we have. And it was in stages and they had it just very well set out that I didn't feel so stressed about it. Because, I get stressed and overwhelmed very easily. And I'm learning as I go to take it one step at a time, because that's how you get things done. If you have this huge thing in front of you, you're just going to procrastinate, say no, and you're not going to do it. But if you can unravel one thing at a time and go day by day, you can get it done. So it was a long process. I think I started this maybe in February or March, and we just published it. But it was a wonderful experience. And now it's the marketing, which well, it's overwhelming because I dealt with a marketing specialist through Freeze and Press as well. And she gave me like 8 pages of things I can do. But she did say, take it one step at a time. Don't think of it all at once. But something like I can do locally is go to the libraries, approach them with it, schools, approach the local news station. Although then I'd have to be on camera.
But those
to
are
put on
things
makeup again.
right, but those are things that you'll strive and then thrive in. So you'll get those things, and once again, we'll have to do an episode one day where I talk about marketing on a full level because
Yeah.
you have insight on that.
Well, you're the marketing guru. You're actually, I have to thank you so much, because if it weren't for you, I would have given up way too easily on the podcast. You were the one when I was getting overwhelmed and stressed, and I was like, everyone's doing this and this. And you're like, it's okay. Just do as you're doing slowly. It's fine. And I think that I really appreciate that. And I thank you so much for all of your support. And I mean, you support so many people and everyone just loves you. So thank you, JR.
You're welcome on that. And my response to that is the same thing I tell everybody always, because the one thing I'll say like this is, and goes into any type of content creating. If you go into any city, there's big skyscrapers, but there's other buildings that are in that city also. Some buildings don't get as high as skyscrapers, and this is in any town, because you always have that one bank that's really larger than any other building in your city. And then you have all these other buildings that surround it, but they're part of that ecosystem. And for that big building to stay there, there has to be an ecosystem of smaller, medium-sized buildings and all other arrays of buildings. And people fail to realize that in anything you're doing. So just because you're not Rogers, I'll use that as a good example. Just because you're not Rogers, well, Rogers would come over here to America and they would be underneath AT&T and T-Mobile, Right. They would have a building in the same complex, but it might be a little bit smaller. But hey, they're still competition. They're still doing business, and they're keeping the creative juices rolling. So that's one thing there. So Stephanie, to wrap this thing up, I need you to do these few things for me real quick. Can you plug one more time, which we call the shameless plug? Could you tell everybody where they can greet you for the book, and also definitely throw in a little shot in there for the podcast?
Right. Okay, so you can check out my website for the book at www.stephanieannweb.com. And that's Stephanie with a PH. You can find me on Twitter at Steph_Ann_web. And my Instagram is StephUp_podcast. I'm integrating. Okay, because I came late to the marketing and everything and the social media, I can't get my name, so I have to like innovate.
Right.
And I'm like, damn it. But anyways, and the podcast is, you can find it, StephUp Podcast. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. I also have a website for that, StephUpPodcast.com. Although I'm trying to figure out, like, should I move everything over to my new website? It's hard, right? To try to, because they're kind of different things.
Yeah, I keep them apart. That's the one thing I have to do with things. Just a side note, because we always go off topic real quick. That's like why I have my personal Instagram page and my podcast page, because some people are going to make my personal page that don't make my podcast page, vice versa. Because I'm not going to have every single podcast on there. So what you're doing right now, I believe, is fine, and that way it kind of takes away some of the headache, because I know you're probably like me a little bit. I like to compartmentalize certain things. Like I like to have things over here, things over there. I don't want everything together, because it's just going to get mixed up in my mind and I'll just get stressed out.
Well, I've heard different opinions on this. Some people say, well, you're the brand. This is you. You can bring them together. And other people say no. So I don't know. It's complicated.
Well, I always say this the most elementary thing I do, and I've been doing this since probably the second or third grade. I take a piece of paper, I put a line down between it. I do pros and cons, because that's what they teach you in the elementary schools in the state of Virginia. Pros and cons, and then I go from there. But once again, Stephanie, I want to thank you for having you on the show. And I want to thank you for continuously coming back and being part of West Virginia Commonplace, because this show has spanned out in so many different directions that it's hard to keep up sometimes. Like, what we're themed about, what we're going on about. But the thing that we're themed and going on about is the ups and downs and the highs of content creators. And content creators that's the clear cut way of saying everybody now. Everybody's a content creator of something. Even if it's just a few phrases you make, that's for content. So I want to thank you for coming on. Is there anybody you want to give a special shout out to?
Oh wow.
Or a group?
Last time I was on your podcast, I shouted out to my mom. That was so awkward. I was so awkward. I think was the first or second podcast I did, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I'm a lot more fun now. I would say to people like you and my friends and family who have supported me, because and you and I have talked about this, not everyone who is part of your circle is supportive or will like what you're doing. And so to those who are supportive, I find that that's very helpful. I actually read an old friend from high school, Andrew. He started listening to my podcast, and he's like very encouraging with my book, and he's got some writer friends, and I'm like, wow, that means so much for somebody I haven't talked to for like 15 years or something. And now we're connecting again, and it's really great to connect with him and his family. And I think it's so awesome, because things like this also bring you with other people, and you get to meet new people, and then you get a new circle of people that are kind of in alignment with what you're doing, and you find your tribe, right?
Yes, you do. Inside all of this. And it's kind of crazy. One thing I'll leave the show on this note. It's amazing once you meet someone and you get their character sits on your shoulder, and you see other people. And this has happened many times between collaborations with people. And you're like, hey, this person would be better suited as friends than me with them, even though we're friends. These people are going to vibe on different levels. So you definitely want to do that with them. But in many cases, what should one person do in any of these situations when you meet all these people? Continue to work with them, strive and get things accomplished. So, Stephanie, one last time, please plug your book.
Book is called What Should Dragon Do?
Okay, What Should Dragon Do? Make sure you guys go pick this book up. The physical format, I'll have to get a copy at some point, but on the service that I use, which is Apple, it's amazing over there. You can turn the pages at a good speed, and everything works out there. On Google and anything else, I cannot tell you, but I believe it's the same experience, even though it's Got some different things going on there. But once again, this is West Virginia and Commonplace in conjunction with StephUp Podcast and Stephanie Webb, the author, on this episode. So, guys, we will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.